As amazing as our time was in South Africa, regrettably, eventually, the time did come for us to leave. And our next stop could not have been more different. After what felt like about a week of travelling and crossing both the tropics, we finally arrived in Japan. Specifically, our next stop was Nagano, pretty much exactly 14,000 kilometres northeast of Ado Elephant Park. Nagano was a little unusual for us. Everywhere we'd been previously, we had arrived, worked out what sort of animals were in an area, and set out to film them, hoping for the best. In Nagano, however, we were aiming for a specific location with a specific animal or group of animals to film. To that end, we spent much of our time in Yoshinetsu-Kogen National Park visiting Jigokudani and its resident population of wild Japanese macaques, who are commonly referred to as snow monkeys. Jigokudani itself is quite a forbidding place. Between the boiling and frankly quite pungent water bubbling out of the ground, and the steep valley walls with dense, dark forests surrounding them, it is perhaps unsurprising that the name Jigokudani translates to Hell's Valley. Aside from the naming though, Jigokudani is an incredibly special place where humans and wildlife, specifically the snow monkeys, live alongside one another in apparent total harmony. There is even a small human settlement in the valley, itself supplied with water from the hot springs, that both tourists and the wildlife wander through quite freely. Before I go any further though, I am going to make it abundantly clear. These monkeys are wild, however, the Jigokudani Snow Monkey Park has been built for them to use as they see fit, and they are fed by the keepers of the park. The Japanese macaque is more tolerant of cold climates than any non-human primate species. And while Jigokudani is not at the northernmost extent of the snow monkeys range, it's only about 500 kilometres south. Despite this, and being regularly exposed to -10 degrees Celsius, with occasional exposures of up to -20, their physiological adaptations to the cold are actually quite limited. You've probably noticed by now that these macaques have very short tails, typically much shorter than 10 centimetres, and they have extraordinarily dense fur, which actually gets denser still as the temperature drops. Instead, the majority of the adaptation of the snow monkey to its cold conditions is social, or based on intelligence and learning. The grooming, which is so often seen among primate species, serves a dual purpose for the snow monkeys, as not only are they kept free from dirt and parasites, but their fur is also fluffed up, improving its insulation. And, of course, as a result of their high intelligence, they will actively seek out warmer areas that are more comfortable for them. Case in point, the hot springs, or onsen, found across Japan. Of course, social behaviour is quite a complex beast, and play, especially among juveniles who are still learning their physical limitations and indeed what behaviour is appropriate, can occasionally get out of hand. Part of the reason for this may be due to the complex social structure of the Japanese macaque, with each individual's position in the hierarchy and the respective behaviours due to them as a result, taught to the juveniles from a very young age. Indeed, as can be the case with human parents, sometimes the adults will decide who is and is not the wrong sort for their child to be associating with, and drive them out accordingly. Beyond this though, the adults of the groups largely ignore the juveniles when they are, well, being a bit dramatic, possibly as a result of the juvenile's tendency to cry wolf whenever things are not going quite the way they should. And we observed one juvenile in particular who screamed more or less continuously for no immediately obvious reason. But when all is said and done, the parents still care for their children and will generally protect them and apparently even comfort them once the screaming has finished. Japanese macaques are matrilineal within their group, and the females will tend to stay with their family group for life, while the males will often move out before they're sexually mature, and eventually will join another group of females. The males and females within a given group will maintain separate dominance hierarchies. And while grooming is incredibly important for maintaining and reinforcing this social structure, Japanese macaques will also self-groom, and this individual has found one of the pipes carrying hot water, whilst indulging in a little self-care. As is common in a matrilineal society, the females choose their partners for mating, and outside of the mating season are often observed engaging in same-sex mounting, although the purpose this serves within the group, if any, is unclear. Japanese snow monkeys are omnivorous with an incredibly varied diet. As you can see here, they are clearly plant eaters, but in addition to the more conventional consumption of leaves, snow monkeys will also eat the bark, and they've also been recorded eating insects, ferns, mushrooms, and even soil on occasion, with the preferred diet of each individual group varying significantly based on the time of year and of course the availability of resources in their region. As one might expect, the northernmost populations of snow monkeys tend to focus on rich seasonal foods, such as fruit and nuts, in order to allow them to build up the fat reserves required to survive the cold winters. Other populations of the snow monkey, typically those in more temperate and coastal climates, have been known to fish and harvest shellfish in order to supplement their diet. And, especially in leaner times when available food reserves are nutrient poor, the Jigokudani snow monkeys will also consume the mineral-rich spring waters, which, based on the smell alone, I have to conclude cannot be particularly palatable. It perhaps goes without saying that snow monkeys are mammals and therefore suckle their young. And like many other primate species, snow monkeys also show signs of alloparenting, where non-related females, especially those who have not yet had children of their own, will also care for young monkeys. Being a highly intelligent species, the snow monkeys are far from beyond ignoring human handouts. As I said earlier in the episode, the monkeys at Jigokudani are fed by the keepers of the park, although they are otherwise free to come and go as they wish. And elsewhere in Japan, the feeding of snow monkeys has led to some startling discoveries about their behaviour, with one population in Katsuyama being observed to not only use river water to clean food that's left out for them by humans, but then being subsequently observed to dip the now clean vegetables in salt water. I'm sure some of you will have already noticed that some of the monkeys shown in this footage are a little on the damp side. As previously mentioned, one of the reasons the snow monkeys come back to Jigokudani is the food provided by the humans. But, far more importantly, and indeed the reason they're there in the first place, is the hot springs. The hot springs in Hell's Valley are a natural phenomenon, and frankly it's unclear at this stage who discovered them first, the monkeys or the humans. Regardless, over the course of hundreds if not thousands of years, humans have been augmenting the pools, increasing their size and making them more comfortable to use. And at some point, the snow monkeys, themselves being intelligent creatures, possibly even more so than we are because they don't pay entrance fees or taxes, discovered that they could take advantage of the human modifications to the springs. And ultimately, in the 1960s, Jigokudani itself was given over to the monkeys for their refuge and use in the winter, and their observation by humans. It would be nice to think that bathing in the hot springs would be something of a leveller for the snow monkeys. However, their social structure, and specifically the hierarchy within the group, dominates even here. Lower ranking individuals are again forced to detour around their higher ranked group mates, and even access to the pool itself is strictly controlled by the hierarchy. Until such time as they decide they're done with it, the dominant male and female and their immediate offspring have exclusive access to the pool. The others are forced to sit on the sidelines, getting as much warmth as they can from the heated air over the water, or pushing the bounds of propriety by either drinking from the water that another monkey is currently bathing in, or jumping from stone to stone within the pool, whilst taking care not to step foot in the water to which they're not currently allowed access. There's even a certain degree of intergroup politics involved in access to the Jigokudani Park. Whilst we observed on one occasion, the troop who had been using the pool and environs for several hours were chased out by a new group arriving over the hills. Grooming behaviours also continue in the pool. Here you can see the dominant family and one of their children grooming one another, before the juvenile in question ultimately gets bored, wanders off to a slightly deeper section of the pool, and proceeds to learn how to swim. Snow monkeys are indeed known to be accomplished swimmers, having been recorded covering distances of more than half a kilometre. Eventually, the alpha group decided they were done in the pool and let the rest of the troop join in. But having spent so much time out in the cold, their tolerance for the hot water was quite low, leading them to dip in and out, leaving them with a distinctive and, honestly, slightly amusing look. Ultimately though, while there is more that could be said about these wonderful and characterful animals, I think at this point I'm going to leave you to enjoy the rest of the video without me wittering on.